Hi sewists and aspiring sewists, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in today's video I'll be teaching you how to make this varsity jacket. Alright, so the first thing I need you to all know is that when it comes to streetwears, we make use of stretchy fabrics. So when you want to cut your streetwear clothing, it's either hoodie, sweatshirts, varsity jackets, you need to be conscious of the stretchy part because that is the part that will be forming your major width, your major round waist, your major hips and the likes. So you have to be very conscious of what side you are using for your width. So for your width, you'll be making use of the stretchy part, and for your length, you'll be making use of the other side that isn't stretchy. So to achieve this jacket, I'll be dividing my my jacket round waist by 4. I'll be dividing it by 4, and I'm currently drafting out the front bodies. Alright, so for the neck I'm going to be making use of 2.5 inches, while for the width I'm going to be making use of 4 inches. But prior to that, I want to mark out my button line because there is going to be an overlap of the buttons at the front, which would not account for the back bodies. I hope this is clear. So I want to mark it out so that I can mark out the actual measurement from this. So now once I'm done with that, I'm going to mark out my neckline, which is 2.5. The weight is I'm going to be using with 2 inches. 2 inches. I'm going to be using with 2 inches aside the button allowance, and for my neck depth I'm going to be using 4 inches. I can decide to use 3.5, but I decided to use 4 inches because it's a jacket and the inner would be underneath. An inner will be underneath. Alright, so once I'm done, moving on, I'm going to be measuring my shoulder. For my shoulder, I'm going to be using 6.5, and the shoulder is going to be measured from the neck width, not from the buttonholes area, from the neck width. It's a standard measurement for someone who isn't so fat. So for this varsity jacket, I am using a size medium. So if you're a size medium, you're going to be making use of 6.5 for your neckline and for your shoulder length. If you are for size large, you'll be making use of 7 inches. If you are for size extra large, you'll be making use of 7.5 and the likes like that. So by the time I calculate it with my neck, I'm going to be getting 8.5. I'm going to be getting about 9 inches. Alright, so moving on, I'm going to be measuring my armhole. I'm going to make use of 8.5, and that's because there's going to be an extension from my back, which would add up to my armhole. I'm supposed to use like 9 inches, but when I add up what I have for my back measurement, it's going to complete the 9 inches. So at this point, I decided to use 8 inches for my neckline because altogether I had a shoulder of 9 inches. So I'm going to be deducting 1 inch to make up for my chest line. I hope this is clear. So once I'm done, I'm going to be taking my length measurement. I'm using length 26 here. I'm actually supposed to use length 25 because I'm going to be adding a band of like about 2 inches, which makes it 27 for the full length. So I'm going to be adding 1 inch. That makes it 26 inches to make up for my length measurement. So this includes both the upper stitch and the lower stitches. Alright, so moving on, I'm going to be measuring my round waist. For my round waist, I'm going to be using 46. So I'm going to be dividing 46 by 4, which will give me about 11.5. So I'm going to be adding ½ inch because it's a stretching material. By the time I'm done cutting, there's going to be an excess of like about ½ inch. So I'm going to be adding ½ inch to what I have. So I'm going to be using 12 inches. I'm going to be measuring 12 inches for the round waist. So once I'm done with this, I'm going to be cutting out my measurements. So I was just trying to confirm if the remaining fabric will be enough for what I want to do. But remember, I had to fold about 3.5 inches because it's going to be having an overlap. So I needed to do that for my overlap interfacing. I hope this is clear. So now I'm going to be cutting out the front bodies. So once I'm done cutting out the front bodies, this is what I'm going to use to cut out my back. So now that I'm done cutting my front bodies, I'm going to proceed to cutting my back bodies as well. But to achieve this, I'm going to be placing my front bodies on my back bodies, leaving out my button allowance, and I'm also going to be leaving out my excess, my 1-inch shoulder allowance for the back. Remember, I want the back to relax properly. That's why I'm adding the extra 1 inch to the shoulder to make it more relaxed. Alright, so once I'm done, I'm going to be marking out the 1 inch. I'm going to also be marking out my neckline, my armhole line. You can see that what we have here is actually exactly 1 inch. So I'm also going to be marking out my neckline, which is also about 1 inch as well, but I have to confirm if it tallies with what I have on the normal round neck. So once I'm done, I'm going to be merging it together with my armhole and also merge it together with the length I have already so that it will be equal. So once I'm done with all of this, I'm also going to be cutting it out. So once I'm done cutting out, I'm going to knot the center part of my front bodies. Eventually you'll see the usefulness of this later on in the video. So now that I'm done, we're moving on to cutting the sleeve. So for the sleeve, I'm using 19 inches for the length. So what I'm going to be doing is adding 1 inch to my armhole to make it 10 inches so that it can fit into the armhole I already created. So I'm going to be reducing the other edge by 3 inches so that I can have a curvy shape for my armhole. This material is actually very minimal, so I'm trying to manage it at the same time. So I'm reducing it by 3 inches at that edge, and I'm making my round sleeve 6.5 because there's going to be a stretchy elastic underneath. So I'm making it 6.5 because I'm of course carving for a medium-sized person. So once I'm done, I'm going to be merging the other edge to my armhole to bring out a curvy shape. So once I'm done, I'm going to be cutting it out just like I'm doing in this video. So guys, moving on, it's time to cut our band. This is actually how the band comes. So this is 2 pairs, so I'm going to be dividing it into 2. So each of this is sold for about 600 naira depending on the market you're buying from. So this is what we're going to be using for both the neck band, the waistband, and the wristband. Alright guys, so I don't need to reduce anything from this. This is actually what we'll be using. So if you're familiar with a Varsity jacket, you know that at the band underneath, it is not just the band that appears. There is usually a small piece of cloth that is usually added to the band around the button area. So this is what we are going to be using this piece of cloth to do. So I'm going to be measuring about 3 inches. I'm going to be measuring about 3 inches for the width, which is going to serve as this both the allowance for sewing and whatever allowance I'll be left with. So the length, I'm going to be making it fit into the band. So I roughly just sketched out about 5 inches, which might be beyond what we have on the band, but I can always cut that out later. So you can see that we have excesses already. We have excesses, which is what I'll cut out later, but this is actually what we'll be using. So now, in case you're thinking we are done, we are not done yet because our Varsity jacket is going to have a pocket. So you can tell not to put pocket, but that's if you're making a crop Varsity jacket, you understand. But this is a full Varsity jacket, so there's going to be a pocket. So for the pocket flap, I'm going to be making use of 1 inch. I'm going to double fold, and I'm going to be making use of 1 inch. So we need just 2 for that because for each pocket there's going to be a flap. if you don't know how to make a pocket flap or an inner pocket, the type that comes with the varsity jacket, you can learn that. Or maybe if you want me to drop a video on that, you can tell me so I can drop a video on that. So for the width, I'm making use of about 2.5 thereabout, and for the length I made use of 9 inches thereabout, which is just an excess cutout, because what I need for my pocket measurement is just 6 inches. All right, so now I'm going to be cutting out the pocket itself. So for each pocket, I'm using 2 pieces each. So I'm going to be double folding to have 4 pieces of this. So for the length, I'm using 8 inches. For the length, I'm using about 6 inches, while for the width, I'm using 8 inches. Moving on, I'm going to be cutting out this pocket. So remember that for everything you want to cut, the width of everything should be the stretchy part, because that's how you can achieve a very nice outcome of your work when it comes to streetwears. So yeah guys, we have it already. So the next thing now will be to start our sewing. We're going to start sewing now. So moving on guys, I'm going to be pinning down the allowance I created initially, just so that I have a straight folding. So this is what I'm going to be doing for both sides of the front bodies. So the next thing I'm going to be doing now is to be placing them on each other, because we created the allowance because of the initial overlap. So I want to pin the overlaps together so that I can check out my back bodies if it is aligning with the front bodies, because you don't want to sew it all at the end of the day and see that the back has an excess allowance than the front. So the best thing is to take your time to pin it down so that you can have a very neat job eventually at the end. Moving on, I'm going to be placing my back bodies on my front bodies so that I can cut out whatever excess is available there. Now remember that initially I said that I'm going to be adding ½ inch to the allowance, because I know that at a point there will be an excess at the side, because it's a stretchy material and one way or the other there will always be excesses. So now I'm going to be cutting out the excesses at the sides of my bodies, just so that I can have a rhyming bodies. So once I'm done, I'm going to proceed to the next phase. So once I'm done with that, I decided to mark out my pocket. So for the pocket, I'm marking out 4 inches from beneath. Then I'm marking 4 inches from beneath on both sides as well. So once I'm done with that, I'm taking it up by 6 inches. Now from the button allowance to the part where my pocket is, I'm measuring 6 inches. And for the length, I'm measuring 6 inches as well. So this is the line I'm going to be following for my pocket sewing. This is the line. So if I want to slant it, I can actually bring it in by 1 inch, but for this particular pocket, I'm making it straight. I don't want to slant it. All right, I hope this is clear. So now we'll move to the next phase. This is the machine I'm going to be using for my stitches. All right, so now that I'm done, I'm going to be merging my shoulders together, because that's the next step to take. I'll be merging it together. I'm going to pin both shoulders together so that I can sew them. So the next thing to do now is to mark my sleeve center, my armhole center, because remember we added 1 inch to the back allowance, so we are going to be marked. So there's going to be a center. So the center now will not fall on the normal joining. There's going to be like about ½ inch coming before the normal joining. So I'm going to be marking that to notch it. So then I'm going to be attaching the sleeve. So I'm going to be pinning it down so that I can run my stitch. So now that I'm done with this stitch, this is what we have already. So now the next step will be to attach the pockets together, the front pocket. Yeah, that will be the next thing to do. So I'm going to be using these two pockets to sew the flap. So I'm going to be attaching the flap to this. So this is going to form the flap holder for both pockets. I hope this is clear. If you don't know how to sew a blanket pocket, let me know so I can make a tutorial on that. So guys, now I'm done sewing my pocket blanket, and now the next thing will be to sew the sides of my bodice. So guys, now at this point I'm done sewing, and I'm gonna head to sew my band as well. So for my wristband, I'm making use of 7 inches. So I'm going to be folding it to attach it to my sleeve. So for both bands, I made use of 7 inches, and you know it's quite stretchy, so your 7 inches can fit into any wrist. I hope you understand. So I'm going to be attaching it to both wrists. So this band right here is 12 inches, and this is going to be forming the band in my Varsity jacket collar. So I'm making use of 12 inches, and I decided to curve the edges. I decided to make a slight curve around the edges. So I'm going to be attaching this to my Varsity jacket collar. So this is going to form the collar at the neck area. So to achieve this, I'm going to be placing the allowance we left for the buttonholes on the collar, leaving out about ½ inch for the button allowance. I hope this is clear too. So this is something I'm going to be repeating at the other side of my collar. Alright, so I'm going to be doing this also at the other edge, at the other side of my collar. So after that, I went ahead to stitch the allowance we left that we said we were going to attach to the band. I went ahead to stitch them together. So for the band, I made use of 21 inches. For the band. So for this band, you're going to be stretching it so that it can fit into your below round waist, your waist, your underneath waist. So this is how I'm going to be attaching it to the Varsity jacket so that it can fit in. So I'm also going to be repeating the same thing like I did for the collar. I'm going to be placing the overlap on the band. Alright guys, so this is how I'm going to be doing at the other side as well. So now that I'm done, I'm going to go ahead to stitch everything that I had already pinned together, and at this point I'm already done. And now I went ahead to make a proper stitch around the bands and also on my blanket pocket to make it very firm. So as you can see in this video, I went ahead to also make a stitch around the bottom area. I made a stitch around my pocket area so that the pockets can be very firm so it doesn't lose eventually. I also made a stitch around my collar, and now we have a perfect Varsity jacket. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to fix the customized design on it. But after that, I'm also going to be fixing the buttons, but I won't be showing you that in the video because I'm going to be going out to fix that. Now I want you all to know that there are different ways to achieving this thing. You can actually decide to make use of a freehand, or you decide to draft a pattern with it. So if you are used to drafting out patterns, you can actually decide to draft out your pattern and place it on your fabric. It makes it easier. But for this particular tutorial, I made use of a freehand because that's what I was taught. Alright, so now I'm going to be pasting. There's going to be a logo at the front of this, which I'm going to be pasting on it. So guys, at this point we are finally done with our varsity jacket. Who say it's not plenty? See the beauty of this varsity jacket. So if you enjoyed watching this tutorial and you would love to try it out, please let me know in the comment section. Thank you for watching. See you in my next video. Bye.